Imagine you're just standing in the middle of the grocery store, right, holding the box of cereal, completely minding your own business. And out of absolutely nowhere, your heart just starts pounding against your rib.
Oh, yeah, the sudden drop.
Exactly. Your palms get clammy, and your chest just fills with this really heavy, suffocating sense of dread. And the thing is, you haven't had a stressful day.
Right.
You've never had a panic attack in your life. And yet, your body is just screaming at you that you are in mortal danger.
It is an incredibly isolating experience. I mean, especially when it happens for the very first time in your mid-40s or, early 50s.
For sure.
Because the instinct is to just look around and wonder, like, what is fundamentally wrong with me?
Well, and usually when we deal with a medical issue, we sort of expect clear visual evidence.
Right.
Like if you break your arm, an X-ray shows a jagged white line, the doctor points to it, and, you get a cast.
Yeah, it's visible, it's categorized, and honestly, that's comforting.
It is. But when you step into the world of hormonal transitions, that X-ray machine is it's completely useless. You are dealing with this invisible diagnostic landscape that leaves so many women just questioning their own sanity.
Which is exactly why we need to reframe how we look at this entire stage of life. We're told to view the menopause transition as just, a winding down of the reproductive system.
That's just retiring the ovaries and calling it a day.
Right. But biologically, what is actually happening is a profound systemic neurological transition state.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today's deep dive is dedicated to answering a question that so many of you have been asking. Namely, why is my anxiety suddenly through the roof during the menopause transition?
It's such a critical question.
It really is. So if you are experiencing sudden panic or raging irritability or just intense brain fog, we are here to tell you that it is not a personal failing.
Not at all.
And to explain the actual mechanics of what is happening inside your head, we have pulled together a really comprehensive stack of sources today. We are looking at medical journal articles from MDPI and Frontiers.
Both really excellent journals for this.
Yeah, and we've also got the latest clinical guidelines from NICE in the UK. Plus, university research from Cambridge and CU Anschutz, right alongside clinical protocols from specialists at Harley Street at Home and Conscious Psychiatry.
And synthesizing these sources paints a very different picture of midlife than the one we kind of culturally accept. I mean, perimenopause is essentially puberty in reverse. Your brain is undergoing this massive recalibration process.
I want to stop you right there, actually, because the phrase recalibration process makes it sound, I don't know, orderly, like a software update.
Oh, it is definitely not orderly.
Right. What you're describing sounds chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand the anxiety specifically, the sources point to the fact that the brain is losing its primary mood manager, which I've always been taught that estrogen is strictly a reproductive hormone.
That is such a common misconception.
Yeah, like it helps you get pregnant, it regulates your period, and that's it. Are you saying it's actually controlling my brain's mood?
That assumption is genuinely one of the biggest blind spots in women's healthcare today. Estrogen, specifically estradiol, is an incredibly powerful neuromodulator.
A neuromodulator, so it's actively changing how the brain works.
Exactly. It is deeply involved in brain chemistry, neural signaling, cognitive processing. Your brain is absolutely packed with estrogen receptors.
Well,
and they aren't just, randomly scattered around up there. They are heavily concentrated in the exact areas of the brain that control memory and emotion. We are talking about the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala.
so estrogen is basically sitting right in the control room for our emotional regulation.
It is fundamentally shaping that regulation. I mean, one of its most critical jobs in that control room is managing serotonin.
The feel-good neurotransmitter.
Right, exactly. Estrogen directly stimulates the production of serotonin. And it also increases the density of serotonin receptors in your brain, which ensures that your neural pathways have plenty of docking stations to receive those feel-good signals.
Okay, let's put this into a visual for everyone. Estrogen is essentially the Wi-Fi router for the brain's serotonin signals.
Oh, I like that.
Right. So when that router is plugged in and working perfectly, you have a strong, stable connection. You feel resilient. But during perimenopause, that router doesn't just get unplugged once and for all.
No, it starts turning on and off completely at random.
Exactly. The connection lags, the signal spikes, and your mood starts constantly buffering.
The buffering analogy is the perfect way to look at it because, the problem isn't simply that estrogen levels are low.
Oh, wait. So it's not just the drop.
No. If that were the case, anxiety would be worse post-menopause when estrogen is consistently depleted. But clinically, we see that anxiety actually peaks during perimenopause. It is the erratic swings that cause the chaos. The brain has to constantly attempt to rewire itself to these new, wildly unpredictable neurochemical conditions.
So 1 week, the estrogen router is fully powered, serotonin is heavily supported, and you feel totally fine.
Yeah.
And then the next week, the router abruptly powers down, and your serotonin availability just completely drops out from under you. The brain is desperately trying to find its footing while the ground just keeps shifting.
And an unpredictable environment is simply the hardest environment for a human brain to manage. Like, think of it this way, a flat, unpaved road, which represents the consistently low hormones of postmenopause.
Right.
That is physically much easier for the brain to navigate than the extreme, jerky roller coaster drops of perimenopause.
So if estrogen dropping causes the serotonin connection to lag, what happens to the brain's braking system? Because anxiety isn't just a lack of joy, right? It's a feeling of acceleration, of panic.
Yes, that feeling of being completely overstimulated.
Exactly. And that brings us to the other major hormone at play here, progesterone.
Right. And progesterone actually begins its decline earlier in the perimenopause transition than estrogen does.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But when we look at brain health, we don't just look at progesterone itself. We look at this really crucial metabolite that your body produces from progesterone called allopregnanolone.
Okay.
In the medical literature, it's commonly referred to as allo.
And allo acts as the neurological brakes, basically.
It does. It acts in the exact same pathways as some of our absolute strongest anti-anxiety medications. So allo binds directly to GABA A receptors in the brain.
And GABA is the nervous system's primary inhibitory system, right?
Exactly. When allo binds to those GABA receptors, it forces the central nervous system to slow down. It promotes calm, it reduces physical anxiety symptoms, and it initiates sleep.
Wow.
It is essentially doing the identical job on the identical receptors as a benzodiazepine, like Valium.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Because I was cross-referencing the clinical insights from conscious psychiatry with the research in Frontiers. And there's this glaring contradiction I need you to clarify.
Okay, let's hear it.
If progesterone and allo are supposed to be this built-in biological Valium, why do some women feel sudden surges of intense panic or rage or severe mood drops when progesterone is actually high during their cycle?
Ah, yes. You just hit on something called the progesterone paradox.
The progesterone paradox.
Exactly. To understand it, we really have to look at how the perimenopausal brain reacts to unpredictability again. In a normal, healthy cycle, you get a smooth, steady rise in progesterone and a smooth, predictable fall.
Nice and easy.
Right, the brain knows exactly what to expect. But during perimenopause, ovulation becomes highly inconsistent, so women start experiencing what researchers call loop cycles.
Meaning the hormone exposure is no longer a gentle curve.
It becomes incredibly jagged. You might have a cycle with an abrupt, massive exposure to progesterone, followed by a sudden, steep withdrawal.
So the allo levels are just crashing without any warning. I sort of think of the GABA system like a pair of high-end noise-canceling headphones. Normally, allo keeps them powered up, blocking out all the minor irritations and, the background anxiety of daily life.
That's a great way to picture it.
But with these loop cycles, the battery is constantly shorting out. So instead of getting silence, you are suddenly blasted with jarring, unpredictable static.
Yes. And here's the paradox. In sensitive brains, these rapid, violent changes in allo levels don't calm the GABA receptors, they actually destabilize them.
Wait, really? They make it worse?
Yes. The anxiety isn't happening because a blood test shows abnormal hormone levels. It is happening because the brain develops a heightened sensitivity to the erratic chemical crash itself.
Oh, wow.
The braking system isn't just failing, it is actively glitching, which throws the brain into a full state of alarm.
So if my serotonin connection is buffering and my GABA noise-canceling headphones are shorting out, does that mean my brain starts treating every minor annoyance like, I don't know, loud email ping or dropping a glass as a life or death threat?
Yeah.
Is that why my heart races over literally nothing?
That is the direct physical consequence of losing your GABA brakes. Your brain is left completely vulnerable to stress, which brings us to the body's main stress response system, the HPA axis.
The HPA axis. That stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right?
You got it.
the system responsible for pumping out cortisol.
Exactly. And normally, steady estrogen acts as a chemical buffer for the HPA axis. It dampens those signals, keeping your physical stress responses proportionate to the actual threat in front of you.
But without that buffer.
Without that buffer, and with the GABA brakes glitching, the HPA axis just becomes hyperreactive. Your body's stress response becomes totally exaggerated. So cortisol spikes at the slightest provocation.
And the sources outline how this exaggerated cortisol response turns into a brutal physical cycle for you, the listener, because high cortisol directly exacerbates vasomotor symptoms.
Right, meaning it makes hot flashes much, much more intense.
Exactly. And then those severe hot flashes and night sweats wake you up, which completely fragments your sleep.
And we know what bad sleep does to stress.
It's awful. Fragmented sleep pushes your bedtime cortisol even higher the next night, and it simultaneously blunts the normal morning surge of cortisol you actually need to wake up feeling refreshed.
Yes.
So you are left completely wired at midnight and entirely depleted by 8 a.m.
It's exhausting. And just when the brain is struggling the most to handle this cortisol loop, the body does something deeply counterproductive.
Oh, great. More good news.
I know. But research highlighted by Evie reveals a specific biological shift that occurs post-menopause. The liver actually increases the activity of an enzyme called 11-beta-HSD1.
Okay, I need you to explain exactly what that enzyme does, because reading the source material on this felt like discovering a betrayal by my own organs.
It really does feel like a betrayal. So the sole job of the 11-beta-HSD1 enzyme is to convert inactive cortisone, which is just floating in your body, into active, potent cortisol.
Wait.
Yeah. Because the liver ramps up production of this enzyme after menopause, your body is literally manufacturing more active stress hormones entirely on its own.
Hold on. My liver is physically printing extra stress hormone at the exact moment my brain has lost all of its neurotransmitter defenses to deal with stress.
Yes. It is an internal metabolic shift that occurs completely independently of whatever is actually stressing you out in your daily life. Your body is just internally generating a state of high alert.
That is just staggering. And these chemical floods, I mean, the cortisol, the fluctuating estrogen, the crashing ALO, they aren't just giving us temporary bad moods, are they?
No, they're not.
Because the sources, especially the research out of Cambridge and nYou, get into how this biological storm alters the actual physical hardware of the brain. Are we talking about permanent damage here?
We are talking about temporary but very significant structural recalibration. A major study from the University of Cambridge actually used MRI scans to track women's brains across the menopause transition.
And what did they find?
They found that menopause is linked to measurable reductions in gray matter volume.
Gray matter loss. Sounds utterly terrifying, like a precursor to early dementia. Where exactly are they seeing this tissue reduction inside the brain?
It does sound scary, but it's important to know they observed the volume loss in very specific regions. First, the hippocampus, which handles memory formation.
Okay.
Second, the anterior cingulate cortex, which is crucial for focus and emotion management. And finally, the entorhinal cortex.
And the entorhinal cortex is essentially the doorway to the memory center, right?
Exactly.
If that doorway shrinks and becomes a bottleneck, that literally explains the experience of walking into a room and completely forgetting why you went in there.
Yes.
It isn't dementia. It is a physical bottleneck in the brain's hardware.
The structure changes, and so does the immune environment. This is where the nYou research really aligns with Cambridge. As estrogen drops, you lose its potent anti-inflammatory protection.
Right, because estrogen protects against inflammation.
Exactly. And your brain has its own immune cells called microglia. Without estrogen there keeping them calm, these microglial cells become highly reactive.
They turn into overzealous bouncers at a club.
That is exactly what they do. They start attacking threats that aren't even there. So they release pro-inflammatory cytokines, specifically one called TNF-alpha.
And that creates systemic neuroinflammation.
Yes, and that inflammation is what patients experience as intense brain fog. You know, that feeling like your head is stuffed with cotton wool.
Oh, I know it well.
It is also directly linked to the sudden onset of depressive symptoms.
So the architecture, the chemistry, and the immune system of the brain are all radically shifting at the exact same time.
All at once.
If you are listening to this and feeling totally overwhelmed by the idea of shrinking gray matter and inflamed brain cells, take a breath.
Yes, please.
Because the purpose of understanding these intense biological mechanisms is to realize that your symptoms are valid, they are physical, and most importantly, they are treatable.
Exactly.
So how do we start fixing the hardware?
Well, because we understand the exact mechanisms failing, we know how to target them. From a medical intervention standpoint, menopausal hormone therapy, or HRT, is a highly effective frontline option.
Right.
By providing a stable exogenous supply of estrogen and progesterone, HRT essentially stabilizes the Wi-Fi router. It smooths out the erratic neurotransmitter fluctuations and restores that buffer to calm down the hyperreactive HPA axis.
But HRT isn't an option for everyone, obviously. And sometimes it isn't enough on its own.
Very true.
But the clinical guidelines provide alternatives that target the exact same pathways.
Yes, for women who cannot or, choose not to take HRT, low-dose SSRIs or SNRIs are incredibly effective.
Which we normally think of as traditional antidepressants.
We do, but in the context of perimenopause, we actually use them mechanically. Because estrogen has abandoned its job of supporting serotonin, an SSRI steps in to keep whatever serotonin you do have lingering in the synaptic gap longer.
Oh, so it artificially provides the stability that the missing estrogen used to provide.
Exactly.
I found the official recommendations from the UK's NICE guidelines absolutely fascinating on this front, because they are considered the gold standard for clinical care globally.
They really are.
And they officially recommend cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, as a primary management option for both depression and physical vasomotor symptoms like hot flashes.
Which surprises a lot of people.
It does. There is even a specific manualized treatment called nYou CBT. And it doesn't just talk about feelings. It physically rewires how the brain interprets physiological arousal.
Right. It's about neural interpretation.
Yeah. So when your heart starts racing, CBT protocols catch the thought, I'm having a panic attack, and reframe it at a neural level to, I am having a temporary vasomotor flush, and that physically stops the amygdala from escalating the panic.
You have to give the brain new tools to manage the faulty alarms. And the best part is you can start doing that immediately without a prescription.
Yes. The clinical protocols from Harley Street at Home provide actionable tools to calm the nervous system down in real time.
I love their protocols.
They're so practical. The first is tackling that overactive HPA axis through box breathing. The mechanism here is purely physiological. You inhale for a count of 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 4.
And that specific, deep diaphragmatic movement physically stimulates the vagus nerve.
Right. And the vagus nerve responds by releasing acetylcholine, which acts as literal brake fluid to slow your heart rate and force the nervous system out of fight-or-flight mode.
You are manually overriding the brain's alarm system. Grounding techniques work on a really similar principle.
Like the 5-4-3-2-1 method.
Exactly. Using your 5 senses, naming things you can see, touch, and hear it. It actually forces blood flow away from the panicked amygdala and pulls the rational prefrontal cortex back online so it can properly assess the environment.
That's brilliant. We also have to address the neuroinflammation, though, and the liver pumping out all that extra cortisol.
Oh, definitely.
The sources consistently point to shifting to a Mediterranean diet for this. And this isn't about weight loss, is it?
Not at all. It is entirely about blood sugar mechanics.
Okay, explain that.
By stabilizing your glucose levels with healthy fats and complex proteins, you prevent the additional blood sugar crashes that trigger even more cortisol spikes.
Ah, so it stops adding fuel to the fire.
Precisely. And it directly counters the inflammation that causes that cotton wool brain fog we talked about.
You were basically treating the perimenopausal brain with the specific neurosupportive care it requires during a period of immense vulnerability.
Exactly. It's about providing support, not just pushing through.
Let's pull all of these threads together. The sudden, terrifying anxiety you were experiencing is not a weakness.
No.
It is the direct result of a buffering estrogen signal dropping your serotonin levels. It is the jarring static of allo crashes shorting out your GABA system.
Yep.
It is an unchecked HPA axis aided by an enzyme in your own liver, of all things flooding your body with active cortisol. And that results in temporary structural shifts in inflamed brain tissue.
It is a perfect storm.
It really is.
But I want to leave you with one final, really cutting-edge concept from the researchers at Frontiers and MTPI. We talked extensively today about how erratic allo crashes cause anxiety. But neuroscientists are discovering that allo actually has an inverted U-shaped effect in the brain.
Wait, how does an inverted U-shape change the outcome?
Well, it means that if we can figure out how to keep allo levels balanced in the exact middle of that U-curve, avoiding the extreme highs and the drastic lows, it doesn't just stop the anxiety.
What else does it do?
Hitting that exact middle balance actually triggers neurogenesis.
Neurogenesis, as in the brain growing entirely new cells.
Yes. The brain is prompted to grow completely new, healthy neurons, restoring its own regenerative potential.
That is incredible.
It really is. The narrative that the menopausal brain is simply aging and declining is biologically false. With the right neurochemical balance, this brain is highly capable of profound regeneration and renewal.
The hardware can actually upgrade itself. I mean, that flips the entire cultural narrative on its head.
It changes everything.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this personalized deep dive. Think back to that useless X-ray machine we talked about at the very beginning.
Right.
The diagnostic picture of the menopause transition might seem completely invisible to the outside world. But inside your brain, the mechanisms are real, they are powerful, and science finally knows how they work.
Absolutely.
Be kind to your changing brain, give it the mechanical support it needs, and remember that this neurobiological event is just that, a transition.